So picture this. You're on Auto Trader, you got a little bit of money to spend, and you see this really nice Mercedes, Audi, BMW for sale with fairly low mileage, and it's about a quarter of what the car cost originally. So now you're flipping through the listing and you're like, oh well, what could possibly go wrong? So first of all, there's a whole multitude of reasons why maybe a car won't hold value. A lot of it is based on demand. Some of it's reliability. Maybe there's reputation. Some cars were just god-awful the first couple years they came out, and depending on the kind of car it was, maybe they just never fixed it and the whole thing's just a giant turd. But there's some cars that just have a bad reputation for whatever reason. Take Mercedes, for example. Everyone that doesn't know anything about these things, I tell them when I drive, and they're like, oh, yeah, you must have a lot of money, or, oh, wow, I wish I could afford one of those. Well, if you know how to work on cars, you probably can. I'd say the number one important thing when you buy an older car, especially if you're talking like, you know, an exotic, like a Ferrari or an Aston Martin that's used or pre-owned, you want to look a little more in depth into real cost of ownership. You want to look at how much parts are going to cost you, how often those parts go bad. Maybe you want to look at some common failure points. I'd say part of your due diligence as a potential buyer is to make sure you can actually afford the car you're buying, and that goes a lot deeper than just insurance, payments, and fuel economy. You want to make sure it's something you can actually afford to fix if it breaks, because otherwise you'll just be sitting with a car you got to pay for and you can't drive. Sadly, I'm telling this story from experience. When I was 22, I bought a 2003 Mercedes SL55. The car had about 60,000 miles on it, which, you know, shouldn't be too high for a car that was maintained pretty well. And everything that could go wrong did. It was a disaster. So I kept that car for about a year, maybe a little bit more than that. And I did the calculations. That car cost me about 50 cents per mile to drive, not including routine maintenance like oil changes and brakes, or insurance or fuel, or even payments. That was just things that broke that were not planned expenses. For a weekend car like that, especially a high-performance car like an SL55, you have to just consider the fact that things are going to break. Look at Ferraris. You know, they break all the time if you break them down by mileage, but the problem with the SL costing me 50 cents a mile is, you know, my dumbass bought that thing as my daily driver, and I had the knowledge on how to fix it. The issue with a car like that was the parts were just expensive. So for me, there wasn't really much of a way out of finding a way to, you know, make it work. I had to either put up the money or get rid of the car, and, you know, I had to make a decision. So what I did was I eventually got that thing in, you know, decent, reasonable running order, and then I traded it in on a Z06. Maybe I'll tell you guys about that another time. Oh, here's my favorite turn. Let's see what we can do. Nothing too crazy. So let's talk a little more in depth about that SL55 real quick. My car had a sticker price. My particular car had a sticker price of about $145,000. That was a 2003 car, and I purchased that in 2017. So it was about 15 years after the car was built, and the car had traveled about 60,000 miles. I purchased that 2003 SL55 with 60,000 miles for $22,000. That particular car has a lot of moving parts, and I mean that both literally and figuratively. It's got computers for the windows, for the dual zone climate control, even though there's only 2 seats. It has 14 solenoids for the hardtop convertible roof that goes up and down. And if one of them breaks, you have to keep adding fluid to it. One of those solenoids is right up here, so if it leaks, it just drips fluid all over the windows. Yeah, guess what? That happened. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna change my oil, and then I might change some headlights too. I got it all back here. This is the only oil I've ever used in the Mercedes. Nothing else, just Mobil One. They don't pay me to say that, but they should. This is for the oil that I just got, and this is for 6 quarts of Mobil One 0W40. This is $46.09 after tax, and then on this receipt over here we have $52, and that was for 2 light bulbs and an oil filter, and admittingly I just got this keychain. So let's break this down real quick. The filter itself was about $16. There were 2 bulbs I needed. They were $9 a piece. And then that silver key fob that I wanted was $16. So I bought all these parts right from the dealership. You could have gotten them cheaper elsewhere. Personally, I only like to use the Mercedes OEM fuel filters as well.
Who I am, I'm making a new plan, rearranging my life, and I won't look back ever again. You ain't see me activated. You better hope that you never see me agitated. I think about my actions, plan them out, evaluated.
Hope you guys learned something, and if you didn't, it's going to be a really fun, expensive lesson.